Right, thanks everyone. My name's Mike Kill. I'm the Chief Executive for a trade body called the Nighttime Industries Association. We've been working tirelessly over the last 18 months fighting for nighttime economy, but in particular, which is the subject of today, is about electronic music. We have very clearly understood that there is a position by government that completely undervalues electronic music moving forward. And today's panel, which is fantastic, and we laugh at it where we were talking outside because we all meet quite regularly on a Monday. It's called the Monday Club, where there are a lot of the electronic music heads get around the table between 5 and 6. Half an hour of whinging, and then we start talking about proper sense and how we can move forward. But it's exciting to have the people on the panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and give a bit of perspective on their experience during the pandemic, and then we'll get straight into it. So, Maria, can I get you to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Maria May. I'm a booking agent. I work at a company called Creative Artist Agency, and I've been in electronic music for 30 years. And some of my biggest clients are people like David Guetta and Black Eyed Peas. What has the pandemic meant for us? Well, I actually went back in the office for the first time in 18 months yesterday. And it was like nothing had changed, like everything was exactly the same. So from last March, when we were sent home by a corporate American company, we've pretty much evolved our business model of working from home. What has the pandemic meant? We let 20% of our staff go. Probably went from being regarded, or was, very, very successful agent for my clients, to making pretty much no money for 18 months. Luckily, I was supported by a big company that, with lots of wage reductions and all the rest of it, we've managed to get through by borrowing a lot of money. What I did decide throughout the pandemic was to get involved with the industry that I passionately care about, that I've been part of for a very long time, that I've sort of grown up in since I was 17, and do my absolute best to try and help and engage and inform and become part of what the NTIA have been doing, what the AFEM have been doing, working with YOS, and just basically stepping up and speaking about all the issues that face our business, and ultimately negotiating with the government.
Thanks, Maria. Tristan, can I bring you in?
Thanks, Mike. Hi, my name's Tristan Hunt. I'm a regional manager at the Association for Electronic Music. So it's a global not-for-profit trade body there to represent the interests of electronic music worldwide. So we have members across 25 countries, 250 members worldwide, spanning sort of every area and aspect of the industry. Been fortunate to work with these lovely people over the last year and a half through the pandemic to come up with solutions and signposting for the industry to help people that have and businesses that have suffered in our industry as a result of COVID. We worked with Beatport last year, for example, where they did a fundraising. I'm sure a lot of you watched the Beatport Reconnect series, and £90,000 of that came to AFEM, where we were able to distribute that to both individuals, but principally businesses that have been affected by the pandemic. So there were businesses that were previously successful and doing really well, where they'd been directly impacted by that, and we were able to help them out and save jobs in that area. I've been in this industry now sort of, I guess, for 20 years. I've been going out clubbing and in festivals and parties and all sorts since mid-90s. So I've been around it for a little while, and just really here to try and help shore up the future of the industry and make sure that we've got an industry 20, 30 years, 40 years from now.
Thanks, Tristan. Yusuf, I think most people know you, but it'd be great to hear a bit more.
Yeah, my name's Yusuf. I'm a DJ, producer, record label owner, and circus events owner with Richard and our amazing but small team just behind you over there. I've been on the road for over 25 years. I've been releasing music on kind of well-known labels to varying degrees of success. The circus has gone on from being a really small event into what happened this year to make it almost like a global phenomenon with the First Dance. The First Dance came about by being disregarded, it felt, by the government. We were being left behind, and I took that very personally and just wanted to get on some sort of crusade with the guys here. I know that anyone that would help. So I used my time and energy during the pandemic to connect with local governments, local MPs, and try to get it as high up the Atheon as possible, which had various like I say, degrees of success. I've really personally enjoyed using my energy and time and to kind of accumulate all the knowledge that I've accumulated and the connections that I've accumulated over the past 20, 25 years to help others over the past 12 months. It kept my self-esteem intact during a time when everything had been taken away. I really enjoyed helping others, and now it's got to the point now where we're going to, hopefully, the plan is to make sure that electronic music is a legitimately nurtured art form going forward in the future. So it's the crusade started to help people, but now hopefully it's going to leave a flag in the sand permanently for our industry.
Thanks, Yusuf. Billy?
Hi there, I'm Billy Moseth. I run the Bright Music Conference down in Brighton. I also work at Waterbury College of Music. I'm the head of electronic music and business, and I run a little venue down in Brighton. I'm currently doing an MA in music entrepreneurship. That's pretty much me.
Brilliant, thank you. Look, I think the important part of this is actually trying to explain a bit of a journey, what we've been through, where we've come from. Many of us across this panel, as I said earlier, have been involved in something called the Monday Club, which is this amazing name that Yusuf has come up and has sort of stuck, which is made up of movers and shakers in electronic music, from artists, agents, promoters, trade bodies, etc. And one of the premises of bringing these people together was the fact that ourselves as a trade body looking at nighttime economy realized that there were some huge gaps with things like the culture department within government and their real understanding of what contemporary music was, particularly electronic music. And it really resonated, and all of us have had this experience and had a big conversation about it. But when you are confronted with a culture minister that looks after our country in terms of its cultural output, and you ask them, do they understand what electronic music is? And they don't understand the output, they don't understand the economics, they don't understand the cultural implications, and they don't understand the community penetration that it gives. It gives you a real concern that these people have just not got a handle on it. We, as an association, alongside AFEM and many on this panel, launched something called Let Us Dance, which was a big campaign signifying a benchmark to ensure that government recognised contemporary music and allowed us to access cultural funding to support nightclubs and promoters. A huge benchmark. And from there, Monday Club has grown, has become amazing, and it's really sort of started to exploit and drive forward on some really, really smart initiatives to start to substantiate all of those key levers that are going to make a difference in terms of government. So I'm not going to draw on it because funny enough, Maria got an email from my wife earlier saying, please don't let him waffle. And as you can hear, it's already started. So one of the things I really want to say, and this is a little bit for all, is for each of you on the panel, and I'll start with Josip, what has been the biggest challenge in terms of you coming away from what you love and cherish and the challenges during the pandemic? What has been the biggest challenge for you as an artist?
Well, something that you've, worked hard on for 25 years from scratch, to be suddenly taken away was quite a bitter pill to swallow. Actually, I have to admit, for the first 2 months it was great, because I had not kind of stopped doing anything for such a long time. Like going to the airport three, 4 times a week for 20 years takes its toll, it turns out. I hadn't even realised. But when the economics of things, the reality of the economics starts to kick in, and you still have to kind of take care of the staff in the circus office, and then you have to kind of take care of the reality of living life, on top of your artistic endeavours being taken away, and you're trying to kind of release music. And the way it is within electronic music, you're always essentially running uphill as well. So with the pandemic coming in, you're running uphill, you don't even know which direction you're going to go in, and you're literally being pushed down. So it was really difficult. It was emotionally challenging. But I guess that's why when there was a sniff of, okay, let's help others here to kind of help ourselves, and also to kind of release, it turns out with the Monday Club, one thing that I've taken from that is the amount of potential that we're being able to release that I didn't personally even realise that I had, and the others may feel the same. So to be able to kind of harness the experience and all that was quite, it's quite gratifying and satisfying in a lot of ways.
Brilliant. And Billy and myself have been through a bit of a roller coaster as well. BMC that happens on the South Coast is fantastic, but as you can appreciate, with trying to put events on in this environment has been, can I, can't I, what have I got to do, what hoops have I got to come through, what are the barriers? Billy, can you give us a bit of an understanding of your journey, or somewhat of a bumpy road?
Well, I had a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, as you all know. Last year, the goalposts got changed so many times. We had to rearrange BMC. I think it was 4 times we arranged it, wasn't it, in the end? We ended up doing an online version of the event, which went pretty well, actually, at the end of it. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing, when it all obviously you go from working, I DJ as well, and I promote clubs and things like that, so then suddenly having everything taken away, all your money's gone, you know, as well, you know, so yeah, it was a real struggle, you know, and but luckily we seem to be getting back to a bit of normality now, but yeah, it was a tough couple of
Well, it was interesting. I mean, as legislation changed, I was getting cold sweat calls at about 11:30 at night that the wife was definitely questioning. Maria, can I come to you? I mean, as an agent and looking after artists, I mean, it must have been surreal. Can you give us a bit of a perspective of what you were confronted with?
Well, I mean, we all thought it was only going to last for a few months. Do you remember? So we spent 2 months drinking wine and eating cheese and having a laugh like it was Christmas or something. And it was going to be, the summer was going to be fine. And then as the summer slowly disappeared, then, you know, I think I've rescheduled some band tours maybe 5 times now because, you know, managers were keen to work if they could because that's all they know. So you were moving tours and then you were moving a tour again and then you were moving a tour again. I literally, you know, I could probably reroute a tour in about half an hour now. I've done it so many times, obviously, after all this time, but it literally became like a regular thing. And I think the anxiety about what the future held or holds was really quite interesting, how a lot of people were like looking into the abyss of whether we would actually even ever run again. And, you know, everybody's really gung-ho at the moment, but we still don't really know what's going to happen in the future. And whilst England is miles and miles ahead of the rest of Europe, there's still, we could, you know, what frustrated me overall was the way that nightclubs were basically completely shut straight away and regarded as dangerous places against, you know, you were more likely to get COVID from going shopping. And the way that events were shut down and that there was no support. And then do you remember, I think it was like 2 months in, they did that campaign where they said you should retrain. Yeah. And so there were all those adverts where it was like Fatima, the ballet dancer, should should retrain and do something else. And I don't know why they decided to launch that, but that was a real call to arms for me.
Have you seen my ballet moves now, though?
You've become a ballet dancer. Okay. For me, that really pissed me off. I was like, fuck you. Like, I'm not retraining. I've been doing this for 30 years, and everybody I work with is a master of their realm, and they've worked so hard over all these years to get to where we've got to. And obviously, when we first started, when we were teenagers, we didn't know how big this business was going to be, but we did it from a place of, I don't know, it was like a community. There was a lot less of us, right, Jos? And we all like knew each other and we travelled around the world, and this business just exploded. And there's a lot of people that are still in this business that have grown up together from, like, literally, I was 17 with a rucksack going to raves. I didn't know what being an agent was. I just kind of ended up doing it. But I kind of met everybody, didn't really like DJs then, thought they were a bit nerdy, you know, just used to hang out with all my girlfriends and go dancing. But, you know, I'm saying that I suddenly realised when they did that campaign, right, how are we going to fix this? Why are we being asked to retrain? Why is what we do regarded as a luxury or something that you do? I remember growing up, my mum and dad never ever thought I would have a career in the music industry. They just thought it was like it was something I was going to fail at. And then you could see it coming out in like government messaging that this was just basically something that you do for fun. And yet the reality is that, you know, I've created myself, I pay a lot of tax, you know, it's like I'm an upstanding member of the community. What I do is valuable, and the jobs that I've created for the world, like I have value. And at that point it was it was a carrying call. I was like, right, you know, I used to be very political in my 20s, and I just basically sought out a bunch of us that were exactly the same. And I'm like, we need to negotiate with the government. And it's something, as someone who's quite left-wing myself, that would always have avoided, because we were so self-sufficient as an industry, and we just ran the safest events in the world, where we didn't get into any trouble with authorities. We did everything in our power to make sure that what we were doing was safe, because, you know, the government would otherwise not license us. And then we just carry on paying millions, billions of pounds in taxes, right? And so we'd never really asked for help before. We never really decided to negotiate where we needed to get more funding at the Arts Council, because unless that Let Us Dance campaign had taken place, the electronic music community would have definitely received less money, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Because it's not regarded as culture.
It's interesting when you talk.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking on the way up on the train, and the difference of how important community is in terms of electronic music. But even down to, I mean, I was sat in the meeting when they showed us the narrative around Retrain with Oliver Dowden, and the silence was deafening. And then there was this tirage of, you know, are you I mean, everyone was saying, are you taking the piss, but in a really polite, politically right way. And it was just surreal. And it was almost like they were pushing this forward in a way that they felt that it was all right and they understood.
But in some respects, 2 years off work, they might have been, in some respects, they knew what was coming, didn't they? Let's be really honest. However, I was offended by that, and many of us were really offended that they could just throw away a life's work and career that had, you know, created so much positiveness, and then realising the community that we're all part of. And obviously, as the business has expanded, a lot of people have forgotten how important community of dance music is, and why, you know, there's something special about what we do and what we're in. And regardless of how successful you are, or what you're perceived to be booking, or what label you like, or how credible you are, the reality is that dance music was based on community. It was about, you know, and it was created in the UK, pretty much in the UK. I mean, we led the way. And again, negotiating with governments, trying to explain to them the world-class global export that has been created and generated from the UK with UK culture, was fascinating. That there are so many people in government that just literally do not understand what our business is all about. And then when you hear the figures, shall I quote them now?
Go for it.
That the nighttime economy generates before the pandemic was 112 billion pounds to the UK economy. 46 million of that was 46 billion of that was towards culture. So we were trying to add it up on the train, weren't we? We were saying maybe 30% of that 46 billion is dance music. And
so
how much money is paid in tax out of the nighttime economy to the UK economy?
60 billion in HMT contributions.
Right, so basically making nighttime economies the 5th biggest GDP in the UK, which is bigger than the car industry, which is bigger than cosmetic industry. And then you start thinking, why the fuck are they being so fucking rude to us? Like,
I know I brought Maria on for a
sorry,
reason.
oh, I'm not, is this being recorded? I shouldn't have sworn, right? Fuck.
CAA.
Like, why is it okay for them to behave in such a disrespectful manner to such a driver of economy? Like, so, but then you can be the angry voice, or you can be the smart voice. And the smart voice gangs up with all your mates and comes up with some really clever ways to challenge government across the board and infiltrate on any level possible to garner interest or support. And that's exactly what we've done.
Thank you. And Tristan, just a separate question, and this is completely, and I think we've sort of covered, do you think the sector, and I know you cover multiple territories, but do you think the sector is undervalued in terms of its position across the UK at the moment? And do you think the UK public understand it as much as we would want them to actually put us as a prominent piece within the economy?
I think to Maria's point, we are massively undervalued. certainly by the government, we haven't been recognised for the tax contributions we've made, for the part we play in society as a whole. The reason that most people go and work is so that they can go and enjoy themselves, so they can go and listen to music, they can go to the parties, they can go to festivals and clubs. And so many of those people also obviously make music themselves. So on a cultural level, the arts are vital, of which we're a part, an equally valid part to classical music or ballet or whatever else might be regarded by people in government. These people in government think that Annabelle's in London is representative of dance music. I mean, that's kind of what we've been dealing with. So it's very hard then to have a conversation with people that really have no understanding of this industry and what it means and what it does in a meaningful way where they can then support it. So again, to Maria's point, a big part of the work that we've all been doing has been education. So it's been trying to show the government what our industry is worth, make them appreciate the value of that, so they can get in our corner and support us. To your point, Mike, about the public, I'm not sure that they do either, really. I don't think that most people really understand the value of electronic music, or they see it as being something that might be slightly niche, or they don't realise it's in every... Or shady, yeah, or has certain connotations to it that, you know, are seen as being bad, but they don't realise that dance music's in all of our films, it's on our adverts, it's an integral part of our culture. So I think there's a broader piece there about how we sort of help to inform people, make them better aware of the place that we play.
I think it's interesting that not only the government, you know, you have to remember, government is dominated by public image, so they will listen and watch the public response. And if you think about the way that electronic music has been framed for many, many years as that underground sort of subversive drugs, that side of things, it's very difficult to sort of bring yourself out of it. We've seen it, you know, with the greatest respect in the festival sector. You know, all of these underground raves that happened years ago are now festivals of today, but legal. That's the reality. So there's a lot of work that's been done. I mean, when you talk about nighttime economy, I think it's something like 300 million nightlife visitors per year, which is huge. You know, you talk about 1.94 million people who are employed within the sector in nighttime economy, 425,000 within the cultural sector alone. You know, it's now that we need to start making sure that our representation is very clear, our value economically, community, cultural, and they understand that, you know, with the greatest respect, and this is one of the figures that always tipped me over the edge, and Jos, I'm going to come on to you because I know Jos is very passionate about this and I want to hear that side. 91% of funding coming out of the Arts Council goes to classic arts, right? 91%. Can you just imagine? I mean, you know, we should be front and centre in that. And that's one of the remits and one of the things that we're driving towards. But Jos, I want you to come in because I know, you know, I can feel the pressure because you want to come in, but I know you've got so much to say about it.
Well, you know, like I say, even this year, when we've managed to kind of get a bit further up the chain from speaking to like local MPs to local governments and all the way up to Caroline Dinage, who's the Minister for Arts and Culture for the DCMS, and speaking to her like directly, and when she says, look, I'll be honest, and her actual words, I haven't got a fucking clue about what you guys do. And she is almost like the top person you need to be getting this across to. But again, because this Monday Club, where we've been meeting every week, and it's been, like I say, truly informative for me, and we've all kind of pooled our skills and resources and, you know, to hope to help our industry and the community going forward. And is it okay to mention about what we've been up to? Yeah. Well, we're trying to put together this report, which is going to almost kind of solidify the history of what electronic music has been doing within the UK for the last 35 years. We're going to have all literally the stats and, like I say, the cultural and economic and social footprint of everything that's been happening, just so the government can understand it in their terms. Further to that, between us, we suggested that we're going to have a census. Now, the electronic music scene anywhere in the world has never had a census done like we have every 10 years within the UK. So it's very, very close. I mean, it's literally, you know, weeks away. We're going to start pushing out this census. So we want every single person who works within the electronic music industry from all levels, from just out the bedroom, producer or whatever you do, all the way to kind of the top of Sony Music to fill in this census, to contribute. So once this report is organised and all the stats and the details are kind of extrapolated, and it's going to be put into this really kind of detailed, engaging, emotionally charged report, and it's literally going on a desk at number 10. It's going to slap him around the face with it. So he can understand, and they can understand the impact that we've had over the last 35 years. And also, one thing that really annoys me is, like Maria said before, we've never asked for anything. We're probably the sector in the whole of the UK with the most entrepreneurs, the people that kind of get off their arses, decide what they want to do, work at it until it's a reality. And isn't that the whole point of what the Conservatives want people to do in the first place, is to be kind of like entrepreneurs? So here we are. We've been doing it for 35 years. We're very organised. We're unbelievably safe, which has been proven since the club's reopened. We are literally taking off our own bats to get people to ask lateral flow tests. And the government are saying you don't really necessarily have to. So we're showing time and time again about the level of professionalism. So this is going to be presented gently by Michael with hopefully a 2-footer challenge in a couple of weeks, and then we're going to move forward. And the goal is for our scene to be recognised as a legitimate art form permanently. So when we need support going forward, or even now, the conversation is a lot smoother.
Thanks, Jos. I think the thing that we've got to consider here, there's two parts of it. What we're trying to demonstrate for the first time is the economic value, the community value in terms of what it brings, in terms of jobs, livelihoods, and how far and wide it reaches. And also, the other thing that you've got to quantify is, while we talk about 91% of funding going from the Arts Council to classic arts, we also have to remember how important electronic music is in terms of penetrating low-income families, you know, kids on the corner making music from their mobile phones, you know, whether it be grime or whatever it is, or some sort of electronica. It's vitally important to creative well-being, social well-being, etc. So there is a massive part to play for us to start educating. And there's two parts in terms of the NTIA and what we're trying to drive forward with everyone within the Monday Club and from the industry is we need to solidify and give an absolute economic value. That's what's going to turn heads. But the big process after that is, one, to secure funding to support the size of industry that we're talking about, and that's about pressuring Arts Council to put funding aside to support up-and-coming creatives, events, etc. And then the other side of it is we need to educate. You know, we've got an immediate education problem, which is, with the greatest respect, the average age of a councillor is 65. And I mean, you know, I had a conversation with a special advisor in government the other day, senior, and he said, I wish the government ministers would get their head out of Saturday Night Fever and start to understand what nightclubs are and what electronic music is. So we've got a really big battle. And part of the long-term solution is the cyclical representation in government. We're not going to change it overnight. What we need is younger people to understand that they can represent contemporary music culture, and then start to forge a way that the likes of Westminster and the devolved governments and local and regional councils then start to have younger representation who have a preformed understanding and experience of our industry. That's a big part of what we need to achieve. So anyway, look, let's talk about the future. How do we rebuild? And I'm going to talk to Maria. I was going to sort of come across here. You know, where do we start? What is the next stage and the important part that we need to deal with moving forward so that we can make sure that we rebuild and have the best opportunities out the back end of this pandemic?
Oh my God. How to save the electronic music industry. Well, I definitely think that more recognition at government is what we're doing, which will be first steps. I'd definitely like to see the business running better again, so I'm not holding out. I would say in the next 6 months we're going to start seeing our business hopefully running as well as it did before. Let's hope so. And I think then we've got living examples of how successful this business is, and we can engage government with that. I'd like to see the recognition of our genre and our culture is the most important thing, because from that will come more funding for education, more funding for arts, including electronic music, community, like projects, looking at this and like coming up with things like that. Town planning. I mean, you know, infrastructure. Like looking at this as I mean, you know, I don't know, look at Holland. They've got a whole clubbing district which is fully supported by the governments there because it's an economic driver. Like this is the kind of examples that I would like to see our government, you know, our government and local councils engaging with. So we are, you know, bottom line is people like will probably shy away from me going, yeah, it's an economic driver, it's not very cool. But the reality is this is exactly what we need to be showing, that we need to be like not building flats opposite the Ministry of Sound. No. And then the people in the flats trying to shut Ministry of Sound down because they don't like the noise. Like we need to be like at council and government level trying to lobby for our industry that we're future-proofing it and protecting it. I hope that was a good enough answer.
No, that was perfect. And I think some of this panel is trying to understand exactly some of the work that's going on in the background, from, you know, the report that's going in to benchmark exactly what the value is and then grow from there. Tristan, can I bring you in on that?
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to jump in on Maria's point there about Ministry of Sound and the flats that were built opposite it. There was a paper put through to government several years back, which basically put the onus of responsibility on property developers as a direct result of this. Pretty much the only thing that Boris Johnson ever did of any good in London when he was mayor, which was to put in this bill, which is now national, which says that property developers, if you're going to build a block of flats, whatever it might be, next to an existing nightclub or venue, that you then have to soundproof that. The onus of responsibility is on you. People then can't move into those flats and say, we want the club to close down, which was what we were looking at in London and several other places around the UK. So to Yusef's point about sort of like having a figure that we can go to the government with and say, look, this is what our industry's worth. We know that when we've done that in the past, it's worked. So the flats are an example of that. So we can change government legislation and we can help to shore up the future of the industry within the UK in a way that's really sustainable and that the government will listen to. And once it knows what that economic figure is, then it's all about votes. And it's about what that's worth to the individual politicians. And once they understand that there's money associated to this, as cold as it might seem, they'll start to back our industry more. So the work that sort of this group and other people are doing at the moment to do this it's vitally important. It might sound a little bit boring and dry, but actually it's vital to sustaining our industry. And it's, you know, the reason we all got into this is because of the music and the love of the culture and every other aspect of it. But to enable that to sustain, we need to do this bit of work.
It's interesting. I'm going to come on to Yusef, then Billy, about... I mean, I was on a panel at ADE, just a virtual panel the other day, and they were talking, and they said, well, we've got to become politicians now, not entertainers and, you know, purveyors of music and et cetera. And I said, well, look, the times change. We need to protect our industry. We're 30 years of build, and Yusef, you'll sort of take it through this because you've experienced it from the start, but it's, you know, 30 years of build. We now need to start fortifying what we've built before it gets taken apart by the likes of the pandemic. And, you know, I mean, we're seeing things like inner cities where, you know, residences are being built very closely to electronic music venues and they're being compromised. This very building, we've been involved in some compromising situations where buildings directly adjacent to here have caused issues, and we've been directly involved in the legal challenge on it. So, you know, I know firsthand, you know, how bad this can be. And things like agent of change, which is the provision for businesses in situ where developments happen nearby, have the ability to retain their business level, and the developers have to put the work into soundproof to safeguard the businesses that they surround. And that's an important part, but it needs to be part of primary legislation, which is a bigger challenge. Jos, take us through the last 30 years, the change, where we've come from, and how important it is to sort of future-proof and start working on some of these sort of elements that are going to make a difference to make it sustainable. I mean, we have to change somewhat to survive, don't we?
Well, definitely, you know, over the last 30 years, we've got to remember as well, when we started, we weren't fully experienced. I didn't just come out of a university course and then started electronic music. We were literally figuring it out as we went along. And I think that is, with me, the way I've always... Just get into that one. Some claps going. But yeah,
There's a studio back there.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I think because we are learning on the job, and that is the only sort of leeway I'll give the government. They up until this point, very recently, and going forward, they hadn't had the opportunity to understand the depth and width of electronic music. And like I say, because it has grown. But that said, like Maria mentioned before, it's in every single high street, every hairdresser's, every shop you go into. It's the most important and legitimate cultural situation that's happened in the UK. Certainly in my lifetime. So why isn't it recognised at this point?
Because it's our fault.
Most things are your fault, in fairness.
No, but it's because we've never wanted to engage before because we didn't think it was cool, or we thought we were being too political. I mean, the worst thing ever for artists is to be seen political, isn't it? Like, it's often held against acts when they stick their heads above a parapet and start sort of criticising government. Then, you know, the right-wing media, like, crucify them or whatever. But the reality is this is where I got to it with it, was you have to negotiate with whoever's in charge.
Yeah.
And we're grown up enough now to do it. I'm not 25 anymore. It's like, so what is our legacy? So what do I want to leave after me? Do I want to do where there was nothing in the terms of infrastructure set up for us to come into? We created it. Now, what legacy do we want to leave? And I feel a responsibility to try and do as much as I can.
Well, absolutely. And the other thing as well, you know, it's one thing, it's not just kind of motivating the government to kind of realise that we need at some point a potential handout. It's to motivate the next generation and then on to realise this is a legitimate business where I can kind of have a sustainable, well-paid career doing something that I really enjoy. And it's really fun as well, because I think the government don't realise you can have fun and earn a good living simultaneously.
But when Michael
said why not?
To me on the train on the way up that our industry, you know, the whole collective nighttime industry is bigger than the car industry in the UK and bigger than the cosmetic industry in the UK.
And fashion.
Anyone else? Anything?
No, there's a few others, but I don't want to bring
Okay,
them.
and fashion. What the fuck are we doing?
Listen, I agree with Maria.
All of those industries are lobbying, spending money, getting exactly what they need for trade, export, support, arts funding.
The big challenge that we have is, you're quite right, part of the responsibility lies with the industry about representation. And what we've done is we've allowed a lot of people in those sort of fashion, cosmetics, you know, retail, to ingratiate themselves and become implicit with government. And because of our stature in terms of being apolitical and that, we've kind of prevented ourselves from stepping forward. Now's the time. We need to. We don't have to commit to what the government did. We've seen that because, trust me, I've been kicked out of many government meetings for saying the wrong thing.
And we were also asked to tone it down a bit. Do you remember?
Yeah.
We got the messaging in the middle of it all that we were giving them too much aggro and they were dealing with a pandemic. I knew it was working then.
So just going over, Billy. I mean, you know, I know obviously you see it from quite a global perspective in terms of the conference. But how do you see things moving forward in terms of electronic music? The way that you're operating your business.
I mean, the whole thing about the electronic music is when we started this all off, like 30 years ago, society didn't really see it as a business, did they? It wasn't an industry. We were all just having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And it's only been in the last 10 years we've had AFM, NTIA, and all these bodies come and help us, you know. So and that's quite a big step. And I just think there's also like conferences like AD, BNC, IMS, this one we're at now, you know, these are all things that help us all get together so we can sort of network and mix ideas together. So I think these are all things that we really need to concentrate on.
I think the other thing that's come about is we've got another level of celebrity in terms of electronic music artists as well. There's a lot out there now that are becoming more prominent. They have a greater stature, and it's making a difference.
Shame a few more of them didn't step up when we needed it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
rule of contention.
I'm just going to say this, and I'll say it so that I don't compromise anyone on the panel. One of the challenges that we've had, drawing back to Monday Club, is when we started talking about live music like Ed Sheeran, Rolling Stones, we really readily wanted to step up and be an active part. in any campaigns to support live music. When it came to electronic music, there were only very few who felt that they needed to step forward and have that voice, and it was extremely frustrating for many people. And Jos, you were one that absolutely stepped forward, and trust me, I know the flack that you sort of took for the industry. And we were embroiled in many a sort of debate and argument over lots of different sort of things, but that's been a real challenge. And I think the important thing at the moment is we've got to benchmark our position, and then we've got to fight for a stronger voice. Really, really important. Tristan, so I'm just going to come in. I'm going to try and sort of close off now, but just in a few sentences, what would you like to say to the industry and government to sort of move things forward? How would you like to see them progress in terms of the support of electronic music moving forward over the coming years?
I think a lot of the MPs that we've been dealing with are still of the mind where there was the 1994 Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, which banned 3 or more people dancing to repetitive beats in a public space. So this was the end of rave culture. This is what also catalysed club culture. You couldn't go out and have parties.
That's why we had to license everything from that point.
Right. So that was kind of the birth of that. To see that mind change shift, Mike, I think would be massive. We've moved from a place where that was a Conservative government, just a fact that put that into place at the time, and that's still where we are at the moment, that we see a shift from a mindset that still views our industry as sort of like this anti-establishment thing that's doing loads of dodgy things in the corners with whatever else going on, to this incredibly successful industry that's an absolute integral part of our cultural fabric, and for it to be seen and treated as such by government.
Thank you. Maria?
What he said.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I think it's just about educating the government about who we are and what we stand for. We're not just a bunch of idiots, we've actually an industry.
Yours?
Well, yeah, it's kind of finding the biting point between knocking on the door, friending them up, knowing that that they will want to shut us down as quick as possible and not take us seriously in the long term, to make sure that we're knocking on the door but not being too over the top, just finding that right voice at the top where this is sustained, and there should be a person that speaks both languages in between the rave and the government, that can sustain all this kind of activity permanently.
That's you, isn't it, Jos?
Yeah.
What's that?
That's you, isn't it? That's what you've done over the last year so brilliantly well.
Oh, I don't know, guys, but someone will have to. Maria will have to do it at some point. But
I swear too much.
yeah. But so does Caroline Dinage.
Oh,
She loves it. Yeah.
I also
swearing that. It's
I also
although we get on pretty well.
I also think
Wrong meeting.
Once we get this report through, I'm also getting sick of having to prove ourselves. It's almost like, please, sir, can we have some more?
But precisely, that's one thing that I'm really cautious of.
Yeah, we need to work. We're going to follow through with everything we're doing, and then we're going to rule it. We're going to be we are a force to be reckoned with. Stop mucking about.
I completely agree.
Fierce,
yeah.
we are in our business about how we drive it.
I think the interesting part and the biggest learning curve that I've had is MPs, whoever they are, have got the most rubber-necked sort of position in the world. They will take whatever. They do not move from any criticism at all. Our thing is at the moment is substantiating our value, really starting to drive forward. We've got some really challenging times ahead, but we've got some opportunities to contest situations. When you talk about electronic music and its value in terms of community and culture, when you talk about the challenges around drug culture and things like the loop and things like that going on, we've got some big debates to discuss and move forward. They're going to be uncomfortable. We've had those uncomfortable decisions with the likes of the Met, who don't want to look at drug testing. If you can't solve the problem, then you need to try and manage the problem the best way that you can.
But we also need to lead in that, and actually showing them what the right thing to do is, rather than them pontificating or coming to a political side, what gains them more votes. We're practical problem solvers. This is how you do it. We know what we're talking about.
It needs to be a permanent position,
yes,
where that they come to us if the shit hits the fan on their side. Yeah, and also, we need to figure out what we're going to do about Michael Gove's dance moves as well, because that's become a bit of a worry
Yeah.
in the last
Bless.
few weeks.
What I want to know is, why did he try and jolt the £5 entry fee?
Did he actually say, "Do you know who I am?" when he's trying to get
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I spoke to the manager of the club in Aberdeen. He said, "Do you know who I am? I'm the Duchy of Lancaster, and I don't really want to pay £5 to come in. And please, can you get someone to follow me around so I don't
Why
get
did they
beaten
let
up?"
him in?
No, that's true. That's what he asked, for someone to
I
follow him
wouldn't have let
around.
him in. But anyway.
Yeah, no. You should have knocked him back. It would have been a bigger press piece.
Sorry.
Well, look, I know we're coming to an end, and I was just going to put it out to people if anyone's got any questions for the panel. Quite happy to take open ones. If they're too difficult, we'll sort of probably ignore you. And but if anyone's got any questions, then please throw them out, and we'll try and answer as we move forward. But as you can appreciate, it's an exciting time to be open. We've got some challenges come the end of September, and we're obviously lobbying hard against things like COVID passports, and we're just about to. Scottish Government are just about to be served an injunction against legislation going forward. So there's lots of work being done in the background that possibly, and the biggest criticism we have, and AFM and many people on this panel, is it's not easy to get that out in the public domain, the amount of work that goes on in the background to actually get to a point where we can open doors. So I'm just going to say it for everyone on this panel that works alongside us and is part of this big movement. Thank you for the support and the amazing community that we've presented. And in Maria's words, the biggest strength that we have is the community that we represent. And we were talking on the... Do you want to just talk about what we were talking about in terms of rave culture and the community back? No? Okay, I'll do it. What she was talking about is the fact that back in the day when it used to be ad hoc and not organised, everyone used to look after each other. If someone was on the floor, you'd pick them up, you get them a bottle of water, you make sure they were all right. And there were the olders and the youngers and all that sort of thing. And that's what it was about. We need to get back to that because our strength is in the people within our community. And that's not only the customers, but all the different sort of people that work and thrive and create and generate this amazing scene. But we need to take from that community is biggest part that we can represent.
Yeah, if we take care of each other, good things will happen. And that's across the board.
So, has anyone got any questions? Everyone? Lovely.
Go on.
Uh-oh.
Just wondering, insurance against things getting cancelled or shut down happening again, what's your position with that? What's being done about that? Because thinking about moving forward, if something else comes along, who knows, another virus, whatever, then what?
Do you want me to? The insurance expert for 5 minutes. In terms of the government insurance policy that's been put forward for events and festivals, absolutely useless. Outvalued, not worth it. 7% of your overall cost. If you're £1 million show, that's 70 grand just to cover for lockdown. That doesn't include the other position. The challenge that we've got at the moment is getting insurance companies to keep business interruption in within festival or event cancellation. So the government scheme, and I know I'm quite cynical about this, the government scheme was set up in a situation where they know full well they're not going to lock down, so they're not going to compromise the £750 million that they put behind it. So it's almost like a little bit of a red herring and a PR stunt with no value, particularly is that they still haven't now, and I heard from the insurers this morning that Lloyd's, who are facilitating it, have no detail and not going to have any detail for another 2 weeks. So there is a huge void in terms of the insurers, particularly for clubs, venues and events and festivals, where no BI is being covered by anybody. And the government scheme is just not of any value. They are trying to influence things like reduced capacity, all those sort of things as part of this prerequisite, but that's driving the premium up. So I just don't see that there's any value to anyone at the moment, and there is no direct solution unless an insurer brave enough steps forward and actually does something about it. I hope that answers your
Or
question.
unless the government actually really step it up and underwrite some kind of policy,
Well,
which is what we need, basically, and that's something we've been pushing for, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what they've done is they've released the government insurance scheme, which is their idea of underwriting a scheme.
It's not enough.
No, it's nowhere near enough. That's what I was sort of alluding to, is the 750 million. There is a scheme that's out at the moment under something called Pool RE. So the RE scheme is something called a reinsurance scheme. So when the IRA used to bomb London, they used to have a scheme which was a build-up under insurance premium tax of something like 12.5%. That money, some of that money would come from the premiums, go into a central pot, and if there was a terrorist attack in London, Pool RE could be activated to cover the cost where the insurers would not cover. What's been put forward at the moment is something with John Glenn, who's the insurance minister, is for something called Crisis RE. So they already have Flood RE, Pool RE, could have Cyber RE or whatever it is. But what we're trying to address is, let's not start dealing with loads of different RE schemes. Let's just have a consortium of schemes which sit under Crisis RE, which the crisis is depicted by the government. We lift the IPT tax up to about 14%, which means you'll pay a bit more, but you'll be able to get cover and insurance through the central government scheme. That would mean that we would probably raise between 12 and 16 billion over the course of 5 to 10 years. And then if we had another issue around pandemic, we would have that money to cover. That's already been presented at government level. Whether it's going to be adopted or not is another thing, but the scheme that's in place at the moment has no value to events and festivals. So there is work going on. And since the first week of July, that work in terms of Crisis RE has gone in. But as you can imagine, it's a long process to get that in place. But Crisis RE is the way forward, because then the government has the opportunity to go, it's a national crisis, we will pay out, but that would be switched on and off by them. Does that help? Oh, stop waffling. That was the sign for stop waffling. Lovely, sorry. So the report, the census is going out in a couple of weeks. So there is a lot of work to do to get to a point where the census is going to be fulfilled. They're looking around the October period for the report to be out, but without a doubt, it's going to be out in the public domain. There's going to be a big media campaign around it. Jos, Maria, Tristan, all on the panel are heavily involved in it, and you know,
so will you, because when we want you to share it and fill it in and just push everybody to engage with it, because the more people that fill out the census, the more value it has when we're using what we get back.
Yeah.
I think the challenge that we had is this has never been done before, so it's a feat in its own. I mean, we've had to get a team of analysts to try and work out what electronic music is in terms of value. We know what culture nighttime economy value is, but if you look at publishing, events, festivals, data, all of those sort of things, it then builds into something much bigger. So, but yeah, we're extremely excited about it, want everyone to engage, but it's, you know, we want to get it right. So when it comes out in October, it's going to be a huge benchmark piece, followed up by lots of public affair engagement and also PR engagement, which everyone on here will take an active part, and we hope everyone in the room will as well.
And everyone should be proud of it as well, and take ownership of it when they're talking about being in the electronic music industry and the value it brings to the country and what it means to our culture. So it's exciting, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry, go on.
As well as engaging in the census with the idea, what would be your ideal responses from us moving forward? As we leave this room and get on with what we do, what would you like to see us do, or the mentality we should have moving forward? What would that be? What would be your ideal response from us in this room moving forward?
For me, it's really simple. It's just do the best work that you can. Just try and kind of aim as high as you can in terms of like quality of whether you're writing music, whether you produce music, or you're DJing, or you're trying to be an agent, or any of those things. Really just aim to just be exemplary in your field, because if the whole of the industry is of unbelievable quality, which it is and has been for 30 years, then that's what's going to strive it forward for me.
I definitely would add to that, just, you know, encourage and nurture. You know, let's build this industry. Let's make sure the rebuild is bigger than pre-COVID. And we put everything we can into quality, creatively, events-wise, you know, in terms of bringing people on. Let's start to nurture those people who really want to be involved, because we want to build back, you know, 10 times stronger than we are now, with representation, with substantiation in terms of economic position, so that when we stand up together, we can't be ignored. The voice is there. But we need everyone in this room to take an active part in that and make sure that they're fulfilling their side. You know, if we do that, that's all we can ask of everyone. And get involved and support campaigns and support the census and things like that, which are fundamental to us being able to fulfill this plan.
Absolutely. Like Maria was saying before, just to close, there's the whole point of the rave ethos. Like you say, it was a real community. Anybody from anywhere, all colours, creeds, persuasions, just getting on the dance floor, connecting to the music. And that, for me, without having too much of a romantic view on it, has come back within our small community in the Monday Club and beyond. All the genres were just kind of evaporated away. It was just, okay, what can you do? What can you do? Let's help. Let's get together. Let's communicate. Let's rebuild. Let's move forward. And you know, what can you bring to the party? And that's what it was all about back in the day. And I like to think that that's what it's going to be like going forward.
I think we might have to close it off there, because I think we've overrun. So thanks everyone for your time. Thanks for an amazing panel.